Hello everyone, Dominic here from Esports News UK with another special guest today. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. We had some really exciting news the other week that Game had sold Insomnia, and Craig Fletcher, who's joining me now as the founder of Insomnia, is coming back to head up things. So Craig, first of all, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been a little while since we've had an interview, Dom.
It is, honestly, and I think it was like, I don't know,
It was at the NEC in like the early days of the previous when Game bought Insomnia, I think.
it was, yeah. I think it was like 2015 or 2016, something like that. So it's
Yeah.
nice to go. And obviously, we've worked with each other a little bit at the British Esports Association. Now I'm doing more on my news stuff. So, first of all, Craig, I said this just before I hit record. It's nice to see you in your Insomnia shirt, and I'm wearing my
Yeah, absolutely.
Esports News
We're
UK
both on
shirt.
brand.
Yeah.
Both on brand.
And the reason I'm wearing this is not even so much to show off my site, is because I always wear this when I'm at LAN, when I'm at Insomnia, because I'd like to do interviews and people can spot the logo and say,
They
oh, it's
recognise
Dom.
you. They recognise you from a way away. It's always good.
Yeah, especially with my lack of hair as well. It's quite easy for people to
It's
identify me now.
noticeable.
So
Yeah.
to start then, Craig, I guess, big congratulations coming
Thanks,
back
mate.
to Insomnia. Um, I guess firstly, before we jump into your background and stuff, why return to Insomnia now, Craig? What
That's
was it that?
that's the usual. The question is like, why would you do that? It's the reality is it was something I built over decades, and I still the decision was the right decision at the time with the available information. I think it's just with all the changes that happened over the intervening years, I think the event started to lose its way a bit, and I think it was clear it needed a home, because once it needed a home that sort of was people who could drive it forward and had the passion to do it, and I think that was what I mean. So I'd wanted to buy it back for a little bit, especially since Game themselves were taken over. And it was a lot of the people that were there were no longer there,
Mm,
and that for me that was the time, and with the community as well. I was going to come back to events one way or another because I think it's something that's so crucial to the community to have these gatherings. So the ideal way was to come back, get Insomnia back, and sort of start from a blank slate and rebuild. So my lights go off randomly.
it's okay.
The joy of Nanoleaf, and then I tried for quite a while, and then ultimately we were successful. But for me, it's I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm my own worst enemy. I can't not be doing things, and it was another challenge. It was a challenge not only just to save it effectively because it could have been shut down with what's gone on for everyone in the last.
Right.
You think in the last it could have happened. That was an option available, especially with COVID and all the changes that have happened. Thankfully, it didn't really go. We were able to do the alternative. So I'm trying to keep the lights up. I need to fix my motion sensors.
That's okay. Yeah, it's not too making too much of a difference from what I can see.
That's
It may
cool.
be worse for
That's
you,
cool.
but that's
That's
interesting.
cool. So yeah, it's you know it's been great for the intervening years doing sort of investing and mentoring and non-exec roles and things like that, which I'm still doing. But the itch is always there to come back, and there were unmet goals and aspirations that are still there that could be done. And I still believe firmly that Insomnia can be a global brand and can be a global series of events. And we need to fill the NEC or a venue the size of the NEC because that was like the aspiration. It's like, what does 15,000 BYOC look like?
Mm,
Could
yeah,
we get,
absolutely.
and that would be amazing.
Uh, there's so many. There's a lot to unpick there, Craig. You've hit me with a lot of. There's lots of headlines whirring around in my head that you've saved Insomnia, and it's great to see that it's continuing. And you mentioned there, Craig. It was very quickly. You said bought it back. Now, when the press release went out a few weeks ago, I had a question around this, and I don't know if you were able to say at the
Yeah, yeah.
time or if you're not now.
Um,
Your role is CEO at Supernova Capital, right? A CEO of
no,
events
no,
and
not
esports.
Supernova Capital. No, that's I'm one of the exec team there, and my role is CEO of the events and esports division, basically.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah.
and as part of that, yes, a bit of it is as is normal with with sort of these things, there's options. So a bit of Insomnia is still mine.
So that's with Supernova Capital, right? And are you? So do you have a sort of stake in Insomnia? Can I ask?
In the division, yeah, which owns that.
Got you.
That's normal.
Yeah.
So it's normal to have that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Supernova is not your normal private equity fund. You know,
Right.
it's a lot of very successful exited, games industry people like Paul Wedgwood being the leader of it all, and it's buy to build, and it's actually, we didn't buy Insomnia to build it up and flip it in 3 years. That's what a normal private equity would do. We bought Insomnia because we believe it can be a critical component of a business moving forward. And Insomnia, I mean, the events business isn't really an events business. It's a community business that happens to run events, and then the community side is really what it is all about, and bringing people together. And so it's whether that community is on Discord online between events, whether it's at an Insomnia UK, whether it's at Stratland, whether it's at another event around the world, whether it's playing tournaments online, whatever it is, it's community. And the plan with Supernova is we've got one publisher. There will be more acquisitions, I'm sure, and we're here to support them. So Modern Morph, for example, is the current publisher. It's like, what do we do to bring their content to the community and get them along, and what communities can we help them build there around their content?
Now, Craig, I mean, a lot of
loads of questions going to follow from that one.
Yeah, absolutely. One of them is that I have already on my list here is that a lot of people watching this may not know Supernova that well, or may not understand private equity businesses that well.
No, I mean, and you can assume that people know, but you don't know what you don't know. It's private equity is often viewed as is one of the ways people exit companies. Is private equity will come in, and some will buy the company outright, some will and then put their own management team in and try and really grow it rapidly, and then make their own return by floating it on the stock market or selling it on to a bigger private equity firm. It's one of the ways that people exit companies. What all private equity really means is private money invested in private companies, is my view of it. I'm not a financial expert. I am not an FCA regulated person. I have to caveat everything with that. But that's my understanding of it. It's not publicly traded companies. It's privately owned with private money going into them.
Absolutely. And it's not. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and we're very different. As in, it is. We want to buy to build something really special, and companies that can all work together. I hesitate to use the word synergy because it gets overused, and it's a bingo. You hear people shouting bingo in the background, but really that the sum is greater than the individual parts. So I think that's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, they're not a normal private equity company. It's not just investing in businesses. It's you're going to have a team, right? Yep. It's a company in itself.
It is already. I mean, and there's some brilliant people in the team already. So you've got ex Splash Damage people, you've got ex Bossa, you've got ex Creative Industry, Creative Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
There's really talented people in that group, and it's great. It's one of the things was, why didn't I buy it on my own? I mean, that was an option. I could have looked to raise the money and do that myself, but the reality is I didn't really want to do it on my own again. That was hard, very hard, long slog, and I think we can do far better, with a team that's already there, with other people who can bounce ideas off and can think of things that I wouldn't think of, and just having that support is just so much better, and allows things to move more quickly. And there's a team there. Actually, there's a team in Supernova, and there's a team in Player1 Events straight away.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because Player1 Events sort of emerged right after Game bought Insomnia from you years ago, and now it's been great in that press release that you put out that said they're keeping their jobs at Player1 Events and they'll integrate into your team now, and I guess you'll be able to manage them, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we've been this is week 5 now, and it's been great actually. I couldn't have. Everyone has been better than I expected. Frankly, you never know quite how people are going to be, especially when people have been on furlough for 15 months.
Mm.
It's really been, there's a lot of lot of people who've gone through some tough times, not just in this company, but in the country as a whole, in the world as a whole. And you never know quite how they're going to come out the other end of that. How quickly can they get back up to them? How has the enthusiasm gone? Is and that's understandable. We're only human, but actually everyone has been brilliant. And one of the great things about Supernova is we have the person who did the splash damage internal leadership and executive development team sort of academy program, and the team has been getting the benefits of that over the last few weeks, and it's brilliant. It's kind of the stuff I wish I had in the beginning, like really top quality facilitated sessions to do team building and what's the future, all the brainstorming stuff, and it's really good.
That's brilliant. Well, I'm very excited, and I guess if we go back then, Craig, so that obviously I introduced you, but I didn't introduce you properly. Obviously you're the founder of Insomnia. That was back in 1997, is that right?
That's when Multiplay was founded, which is the company. I did my first LAN events in sort of 94, 95.
Right, okay.
That was all coax cable, CRTs, DOS. There was no Windows 95. And it was all crazy. I mean, it used to take the first day just to get it all working because there'd inevitably be multiple people who didn't have the right config files and couldn't quite get the network card to work and all that sort of madness. And it kind of came from there. It was a hobby turned business. I didn't set out to run a business. I just wanted to build events because I enjoyed them and I wanted people to come. And it kind of grew from there. 97 was when Multiplay UK Limited was founded.
Got you.
And that was really because it was getting it needed a structure around it. And it was starting to grow. Then the first Insomnia was in 99. So why play Insomnia in 99 was and there's also the story about why we dropped Insomnia back in the day. Because why play Insomnia was an event we effectively ran for them. We executed it all. I wanted to run the next one, Insomnia 2, later that year. And they were like, well, we're not sure we can do it. And we really don't want you to use the name because we think that's aligned to us. So I said, that's fine. I can run I2. And that's how the numbering started. Because it's I2. Yeah. And then there's been I3 and then there'll be an I4. and then it became I-Series. And then eventually we went back to Insomnia. So it's...
And is it right that this next one's going to be I-68? Because as far as I'm aware, I-66 and I-67 were both cancelled. So have they skipped and gone, or?
I mean, I would probably reset the numbering myself. And we haven't. That's actually one of the things that I haven't actually discussed that because we've been more focused on when and where, not what it's called now. There's a debate about what do we call them moving forward. Is it do we keep the numbering? I mean. There's some hilarity, and some people in particular want a certain number to come.
I was just thinking, it just popped into my head. I was like, you could skip a few numbers and just go to I-69 and then get all the ticket sales.
And then the juvenile part of us all, starts to think that would be funny, and just keep going. But we are a community, and we like to have fun at the end of the day. Exactly. So you can't take yourself too seriously. But to be confirmed. I mean, I really don't. I mean, do we go to sort of the Insomnia winter 2020 sort of stuff, or 2021 or 2022, whatever, or do we just go, or do we just stick with the numbering? I quite like the numbering, but then we used to do that with Stratlan, and then we switched just to Stratlan being Stratlan winter, just so because I mean, people come up to me and tell me, yeah, I-15, it was brilliant. We did this, and I go, I couldn't even tell you what I-15 was. I'm like, there's been so many that, I mean, but people seem to be able to pick out the specific events. I'm going, it's a blur of like 20 years of events. And it's, there's a few that stick out with some of the key things that happened, but it's pretty mental. So we're still looking, and we're hoping to do an event this year. That's what we announced. It all comes down to venue and availability, and frankly, that it's the right place and it makes sense commercially, and that's often let me turn off Discord because that's going to keep happening. So I'm prepared for this. I think, that's it. And I've already been very clear with venues and said, look, I won't just bring it back because we've been using it the whole time. It has to make sense commercially and it has to make sense to the community. If those two tests aren't met, we'll go somewhere else. Even if that means going smaller. doing the
Right.
first one back smaller. So because and that's another thing we can do in this sort of structure, is that we can decide to do what's right for the community, not what we have to do to meet some numbers.
That's a great answer, yeah, and that was one of my questions. You've answered it already. Could it be at NEC next? And it could be, it might not be. You're finding the right solution that works.
Yeah. Some people are like, go back to Newbury. It's like, I really don't want to go crawling around though the Berkshire stand, running cables into all those rooms again. But we would do if it made sense. I think it would be ideal to keep it where it was, just for consistency, and it's going to be simpler to start it up again. But it was no secret that the NEC is a very expensive venue, and it's got to make sense. And it doesn't make sense for us to be working for them effectively, rather than being able to, have an event that can invest and grow in the future.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the next event, and part of me thinks that it will just sell out straight away because people are desperate to meet up at LAN. The amount of people that message me, oh, Dom, Discord and Zoom calls, we haven't got to see you face to face, meet up with other players. There are some boot camps and things starting up a little bit, and here and there, you've obviously got big esports broadcasts like LEC and so on. But how do you think, what's your sort of gut reaction, Craig? Do you think it's going to be a sellout, or do you think people are going to be a bit apprehensive?
And we've done some surveying of this, and it's quite interesting, the results. I think over half of the people we surveyed would be prepared to come to an event in September, for example. It just depends. Some people are, and there's like I think 10% that would wait until spring next year. And you can understand that different people have different attitudes to risk. Some people have been vaccinated, some haven't, some are still waiting. Who knows where we'll be, with Delta variant and what's Epsilon variant coming along, maybe. Who knows? So I think anecdotally, and then with that backing it up, everyone I talk to is like crying out for it. And you can also see it if you look at festivals that have not sold out for years.
Yeah.
And then this year they have. I think I think the hypothesis is sound. People have been fed up of being stuck inside and not being able to go to live events. We're social animals. Even us geeks are social animals.
Absolutely.
And we crave human contact and atmosphere. It's what we are. It's how we're built.
Yeah.
So it's been missing for the last 2 years.
Do you think?
I think it'd be huge.
Yeah, I personally do too. Do you think it's going to be a big challenge with COVID? Part of me thinks, with LAN, it's going to be quite easy with the social distancing. You might put the computers slightly further apart, but then the expo is going to be tough.
Yeah, it really depends. And you know what? What is also good about, there's some benefits to the situation we're in that, I was saying to the team, for 20 years, we could never really stop and think about what, you can never start with a blank slate because you're always going from one event to the next. You're always on that treadmill. Whereas this gives us a break to literally go, right, what is it? What needs to be there? What could we do differently? And just to start and actually have the real time to do that. And I think, I would run a BYOC-only this year if necessary, a BYOC or a specialist exhibition alongside it. Especially as I think the challenge is going to be getting the brands along. The challenge, like a lot of publishers, for example, have blanket bans on events in 2021, unless exceptional circumstances. So there's a risk there won't be the content. So it's the B2B stuff I think is more at risk, as in the businesses attending the expo and that sort of thing is more at risk than the attendance of the gamers. I think the gamers, and it may well be we just do a gamer only thing with some specialist exhibitors, all up in the air. Who knows?
Yeah.
If we build it, will they come?
I'm sure they will. And on the BYOC, that was one of my questions here, Craig, because obviously since the last Insomnia, as always, esports is a super fast-moving industry. And, since the last Insomnia, we've had Valorant explode onto the scene. Fortnite's got bigger and, it's established itself really well. What will your plans be for sort of esports at Insomnia? Because I guess the Game Belong tournament isn't going to be part of it anymore, right?
Well, yeah, we haven't had those conversations yet. You know, we're open to partnering with anyone. You know, so it's you know, it wasn't a divorce, an acrimonious divorce. It was, you know, it was it was an amicable thing, and we still want to work with people again. There's lots of I've got loads of friends still there. You know, Belong is a brilliant brand, and what they're doing with all their gaming arenas. There'll be a lot of areas where we can collaborate. Will they be doing tournaments? We'll see. You know, will we do some ourselves? Will we work with someone else? You know, that's all up for debate. And I think there's a lot more freedom in a way, because there's, you know, we can choose. You know, now within game there were natural restrictions, as you'd expect, but now there aren't any. So it's like, if we want Amazon as the partner for retail, we can have Amazon or Currys or PC World, you know, anything like that. We don't have to stick 21. There's no excluded categories. We can work with Belong. We might work with ESL. You know, it just it's there's options. It's quite good to be in that situation. But in terms of BYOC, traditionally it was always about half general community gamers, you know, just coming to play games, and the other half tournaments. So I certainly, where I see Insomnia is more of a platform. We certainly won't be doing large scale, high prize money esports tournaments. I just don't see that as a world to compete in. But we, as you saw previously, we can offer a base for others to do that. So whether it's CWL or things like that. So I see Insomnia as being very much a semi-pro, decent prize funds that make it worthwhile for hundreds of teams to come and enter, like the Counter-Strike tournament, the Valorant tournament, things like that. But it isn't going to be the huge prize funds you see at the sort of top tier esports tournaments, because you know that's not who we are. We're a community that runs events, not an out and out global esports tournament.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I was chatting to Raven, a UK Hearthstone caster, a few weeks ago, and he started his career doing well at Insomnia tournaments and so on. And we were talking about the Hearthstone True Silver Championships, which was really good. I think 25 or 30,000 euros or dollars prize pool.
That's the sort of number would be fine. That's the sort of fine. I think it's the sort of the 5-figure prize funds, not the 6 or 7.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the sort of way forward. I think, because there's no point trying to compete there, to be honest. I think we could do a really good job of doing top tier tournaments at sort of the UK level. And then some internationals will naturally come to those sorts of prize funds. And where it makes sense, we'll do stuff like that. If we see a niche, an opportunity, like there was with the Hearthstone True Silver Championship, we loved that. That was brilliant. We might do that again.
Yeah. And TF2 as well, you know, Team Fortress, because it's more of a smaller scene. When the tournaments do happen, they're like the World Championships, and you've had such a passionate fan base at Insomnia's over the years, and I love that.
It's brilliant. I mean, well, TF2, as you say, it is effectively the World Championships, because they've chosen brilliantly, and I really appreciate they do that, to make up their home. Once a year, they bring the whole community over, even fundraising to bring the US team over and stuff like that. But that's an example of a really good community. You know, it's I think that's what we are, a community of communities.
I guess there's different scenarios, right, Craig, where you're looking at different venues and so on. There might be people watching this thinking, what's the best way for me to stay up to date with tickets? Do you have like a express your interest mailing list or anything
there is.
like that?
I mean, the Insomnia site just relaunched today, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to take it down for legal stuff, you know, to rewrite all the policies. And it was all, you know, GDPR these days, and all that sort of stuff had to be right. That's now back up. There's a MailChimp mailing list you can sign up onto in there, and obviously all of the Insomnia Gaming Festival, you know, social media, like IG Fest UK, I think is the tag for most of them. Or just go to insomniagamingfestival.com. There's links to all social media. There's links to the mailing list there.
I guess this is really hard for you to answer, Craig, but if people were thinking, when might tickets be available? I guess if you could give us a sort of best case, worst case, and maybe middle case, or what would be your ideal scenario for Insomnia?
If the planets align, and that's a big if, I'd love to have something on sale within the next 4 weeks.
Wow.
There's a lot that's got to happen for that to align, and that's really best case, me being a big optimist. And then ideally, we're really looking at a sort of mid-October date. That's mid-October-ish. From there onwards, I don't think it could be much earlier than that. Just with the situations as it's developing. So that's what we're working to. But it's all just open at the moment. It really depends, and it's such a moving target. I mean, only a couple of weeks ago did everyone's events between the 19th of June and the 19th of July just get cancelled, and suddenly they're trying to find stuff. It's such a cluster out there at the moment of it. Before I get too political.
No, absolutely. And what are your thoughts on hybrid events as well, Craig? Do you see anything like that? There's been a few organisers doing hybrid things.
It's something I've been thinking a lot about, and actually over the last couple of years, because I do a fair bit of investment and sit on the funds, I've seen quite a few startups pitching the hybrid platform. And I don't mean things like it escapes me right now. You have a few at the moment. I mean, last night we had a sort of industry drinks on Toucan, which is a brilliant platform for sort of like replicating sort of the bar chats where you move to bubbles and chat to people. Cool. That's really good. And then there's some of the other ones, but I've not really seen anything in terms of like virtual expo, like actually walking around the expo, and it's a replication of it. That's not quite there yet. I'd love to have something that isn't just Twitch streams, because Twitch streams are brilliant. You need to do them, but that's just expected. That's just a standard, effectively.
Yeah.
How do we enhance the experience for those people who just can't get there? Now, how do we offer them something? Ultimately, how do we offer them something that's got enough value in it that it's a virtual ticket? Because that really helps. Whether it's sort of content as polished as you see from BlizzCon, so you've actually got a show that runs throughout the weekend. That means they eventually get to walk around and they get all the content they can look at, or whether it's how do we open up tournaments maybe, or probably not the pro ones because you need a level playing field, but sort of the bigger games, the more social gaming. How do we make sure that can be opened up more organized to people who couldn't make it? How do we make it so that how do we provide value to those people? I think hybrid is here to stay. It was coming anyway. It's just that COVID has forced the development of some more technology, which is another one of the double-edged sword on the benefit side. A crises stimulate innovation, and there's been a lot of innovation. And also we've busted the idea that that home working is bad and that everyone who does it are lazy. For most people, there's still some people clinging onto it, and people have got very used to video calls. Even people who would never have touched it before. I was using Zoom before it was cool, but now it's becoming a verb in the English language. Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it? It is absolutely crazy how things have changed. And I actually think, do you think esports will benefit after this, Craig? Because we've seen things last year like F1 Virtual Grand Prix, Premier League. More people getting into it. My uncle is 71. He doesn't really like games. He's a big F1 fan, and when it happened last year, he was like, oh, I saw the virtual thing. That was quite interesting, wasn't it?
It is. I think it's forced people, to look at things outside their comfort zone they wouldn't have looked at before, because they've been receptive to it, not dismissive, which was the normal state for some people, certainly the older people. Esports, biggest thing they've never heard of. What other people watch people play video games? It's bad enough they play video games. What on earth are they doing? That's sort of the older generation's view that we're slowly eroding.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely benefited. Certainly, the games industry has benefited massively from it in terms of what else can you do if you're stuck at home. That's it. And I think esports, certainly with some of the viewership, I think it's opened a lot more people's eyes to esports that wouldn't necessarily have seen it before. So I think that is a good future. I'm hoping that everyone can benefit from it. So whether it's attendance at events, whether it's viewership numbers to the big tournaments, attendance at LAN centers, whatever it is, there's hopefully a lot of benefits coming for those eyes being opened.
Yeah. Definitely. Craig, there was this notion, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, this notion that Insomnia changed, or at least wasn't quite the same after Game acquired it. Some people in esports have told me they felt Game placed a larger emphasis on the expo side of things, and they felt they're a little bit disheartened that maybe the esports had been a little bit overlooked. I personally thought they did a good job in some areas, like the Belong Arena Clash finals. I quite liked that.
I think that was a really good piece. Actually, I love the esports stage. It changed. And for some people that will have been for the better, and for some they'll have viewed it as encroaching on. Change is bad. This is our event. What are you doing? Some of the old school LAN people. When we had a similar thing when we started bringing Minecraft to the event, pre-game, like when people are like going, "What are these Minecraft kids doing here?" Like, well, these are the people,
can't ignore Minecraft.
Yeah, these are the people who could be sat in your seats pretty soon, or as in additional seats. We want to be bringing people into this community. It's just doing it in a way that doesn't cause conflict.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done. But that's about how you design the events and things like that. I think that obviously the priorities change. Whenever a company is acquired, priorities change, things change, people move on. It was inevitably going to evolve. So I think it changed. I think a lot of people in the community were saying to me, look, they didn't like the change. They would like it to change differently. I think some people did think there was more of a focus on the masses and the expo side, maybe. That also developed really well. But there were also benefits. As you say, the esports stuff got quite a lot of investment, including the Hearthstone True Silver Championship. Then you saw things with like UK Masters, and then the Belong Arena Clash Championships. There's a lot of stuff that was there. I have to say, Game were very supportive when I was there. Yeah. Within the confines of you still need to run a business that's working. It's sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And no, I certainly wouldn't lump it like Game screwed it up and I brought it back to save it. That isn't what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To be clear, I'm saying that it had changed. There were certainly things done that I wouldn't necessarily have done. And I think it needs an injection of enthusiasm and direction. It needed someone that could really, with a vision to drive it forward.
Yeah. Completely get that.
And Game would say that themselves. That it was. So I think that's it, and it means we can go in a new direction. We can go back to like being community first, gamers first, and that is the lens through which every decision is looked at first. It's and then yeah, we'll do our best to bring it to grow it, because we didn't go to the NEC thinking it would just like stagnate or even we wanted to really grow rapidly. Market conditions had other ideas, and now is the chance to rebuild it. And I mean, I want to see a 10,000 plus BYOC at the NEC, or wherever we can do one.
Yeah,
it may not even be in the UK, because we're talking UK focused here. I'd love to have it. I mean, my preference would be to have one in the UK, the biggest one in the UK. But it might be Dubai, it might be LA, it might be wherever. We're very keen to push the international side as well.
You mentioned that earlier on, Craig. So this could be something where we get insomnias cropping up. We have had insomnias in different territories, haven't we, over the years? But people know it remember it here, obviously, as the UK one. But that's interesting. You might have. What's the plans there? Is the sky the limit? You could have multiple insomnias in multiple territories.
The sky is the limit. I mean, we've had Dubai, we've had Saudi, we've had Egypt, and we've had Ireland. And there are a lot of interest for other locations. And we'll be looking at those, whether it's we partner with someone or whether we set up a subsidiary over there.
Yeah.
US being an obvious one. There's lots of opportunities in the US. So I think I would love to see it. It's replicating, because Insomnia is a bit different to a lot of other events. It's got that sort of community soul about it. And it is community first. And that's the heart, and then you build out from that the things that make sense, like an expo, like games music or developer talks, and that and then business tracks like that, careers fair. There's all sorts of things that can be built out around it that make sense without whilst being true to the core values. I think that's the key. But yeah, it's something we really want to push. Spread the gospel of Insomnia around the world.
Sounds very interesting. One thing I wanted to ask, Craig, you mentioned we were talking about Game just then. You still had a helping hand with them, didn't you? At some point, you were some kind of advisor. You did the pub quiz and things like that.
I never missed an Insomnia. I I consulted, I helped on a lot of stuff. I still kept in there, and Belong ultimately came out of the sort of fusion of the Multiplay, the event side with a retail business. That was the sort of thing. It's and that's certainly been very successful and has done very well. The first one was actually called the Multiplay Gaming Arena. Right. So and then eventually it got rebranded. So that was the thing, and I think that then naturally became the focus because it was just doing so well. And I think it was good.
Do you miss the Multiplay brand? Because I think Games sold that to Unity.
Yeah, and
right?
That's why Player1 Events exists.
Yeah.
Because the name went with the hosting business, which is also doing brilliantly well. Hosting Apex Legends, Fall Guys, and loads of others. But we obviously had to rename the events business. We had to come up with a new name for it. So I do miss Multiplay. I mean, it was the name I came up with, just before, in 1997.
Yeah.
Obviously there's nostalgia and you feel attachment to that, but it's times change. You have to move on and create new things.
And on that note, do you have any plans or things that you might do differently? I mean, Insomnia's done lots of cool things over the years. You find yourself in a dark room. You've had all kinds of activities. I think wrestling and stuff, haven't you, and all that.
Yeah, I'd love all of those things you just mentioned.
Yeah.
If it makes sense, how we do it, and if it's done, appropriately, like the orchestra where we had Zelda music being played. I loved that.
Yeah.
And people did. Mistake we sometimes make, and I fell foul of this many times, is you try something once, it doesn't quite get there, and you just don't try it again. And with events, my rule of thumb is you have to try it 3 times to know if it's definitely not going to work. So
is that League Fest confirmed?
No. Let's have the conversation first. We've only been here 5 weeks. There's a lot of conversations to pick up. I'd love to have League Fest back. I'd love to have to play host to any of those style. Bring those communities to our event as because it's especially at the venues we're talking about. There's it's a festival. There are different tents with different things in, and people can choose to go to them or not. But ultimately it adds to a bigger community feel and festival, and everyone's there to share their passion for games. And that's ultimately the drive was bringing people together to share their passion for games. That was ultimately what this has always been about.
Absolutely.
Whether it's CWL, love to have them back.
That was brilliant.
Love to have, as I said, it's a platform. We've got the foundation of a brilliant event with a great community, and onto that we can build other things that make sense.
That was, for me, one of the noisiest crowds I've heard at an Insomnia, the Call of Duty. This was before Call of Duty League. People watching this that may be new. But the UK COD crowd, I mean, they'd be desperate to meet up again, I think.
Absolutely.
On that, Craig, I know we're coming towards the end now of the interview. I think we've got like 10 minutes or so.
For hours, I know.
It's just flown by. This has been a really interesting chat so far, Craig. What would be this might be difficult for you, your fondest or most standout memories from Insomnia, 1 or 2 or whatever pops into your head?
I think a highlight was definitely I-50, where we did an award ceremony. And it's quite emotional actually, because I went up on, we sort of did a celebration video, 50 events. We gave Valve an award and actually recorded an acceptance video and sent it to us and stuff like that.
Oh wow!
It was amazing. It caught us all by surprise. But just the sort of doing that speech and sort of thanking everyone who'd got it to where it was now. Then the crazy speech that followed, like someone from Big Clan got on stage and just suddenly dressed as a Roman emperor and suddenly became Cicero, and did something. And it's just that was a highlight of the sort of the points where we remembered what got us here and what the future can hold. That was a highlight. I think about other going back further, sort of highlights of when we first started to get. We first went to sort of the grandstand. That was like a scaling up of the event. I think it was I-10. I think it was I-10. Might have been 12. See, they all blur that far ago. I'd have to go and check. I think another sort of Highlights. I think is there a more recent one? I think. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, like, I missed some of
saw
those
yours
early I-50s. I started in the early I-50s. I missed that one with Gabe in it. My first one was like either I-39 or I-41. It was a Newbury Racecourse one. I went with MCV, the old video game trade publication, and I think my colleague chatted to you, and I loved the idea of it, but esports still hadn't quite exploded then. And then when it started to, and I got into League of Legends in 2013, 2014, that's when I was like, I want to cover the UK scene. Absolutely. I'm going to head to Insomnia now.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I mean, we need vibrant events. You know, the community needs it. Esports needs it. You know, it's where, you know, just think of the energy that people go away with after they've all come together for that. It just keeps us going, and we'll get back there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There is. You know, we've been through a very hard 15 months, all of us. I think it's. You know, I think finally with the vaccinations and I think and people are starting to, like, we have light at the end of the tunnel. I think it'd be a shame if we couldn't do an event this year, but we can't rule that out, unfortunately, because, you know, no one knows. No one knows. We'll do everything we can to make one happen. Yeah. You know, but let's hope we're successful, and we'll start bringing back the community. Yeah.
Something I wanted to say at the start, and I didn't get round to, Craig, because we just started nattering about Insomnia, but I think you've got an interesting background outside of Insomnia. Yeah. You've done investment in games and things in recent years, and you've also a Lib Dem, right? You ran for Parliament in 2019 for Romsey and Southampton North, right?
Yeah, I did. So, in terms of, well, after the exit, I started doing investments in sort of 2015. While I was at game, I joined a fund in London called Central Ventures, and rapidly, because I can't help myself, became sort of the games, esports, VR, AR guy. I'm now a venture partner there, which is really just looking at decks that come in. I did a lot directly. I learned a lot in the intervening years. I went full time, pretty business angel, after sort of leaving game at the end of sort of 2017, and that I learned so much. And it's such a brilliant industry, and there's so much disconnect between the finance world and the creative world. Yeah, getting better, but it's still nowhere where it needs to be. And there's fault on both sides. Like, there's creative people who just aren't ready, and need to learn, or get people to help them. And then on the other side, there's finance people who just have misconceptions about the games industry and esports industry and things like that, and need to be just educated and shown that this is how you should approach it. And things like that. So that was really good. And glutton for punishment. I mean, Brexit, what the hell? I could tell you stories now about how it's causing so many problems, personally, for me as much as anything else. And I've always been a Lib Dem, and because I think it's the balance. It's the balance. It's like the centrism and centrism. I believe in having a really good safety net for everyone, but I also believe in everyone has a right to have a chance, but they don't have a right to succeed. It comes down to them whether they succeed or not. So it's I think it's you've got to keep people. We've got to look after everyone, and so that's more the Labour side. But the social democrat is probably the way to think about it. So everyone needs to be looked after. It needs to be good. But on the other side, I do believe sort of regulated free market capitalism is the least worst system we've come up with so far for opportunity.
At the risk of me going too far down a political rabbit hole, I do often wonder what would have happened if Lib Dems would have got in whenever it was 11 years ago, rather than being a hung parliament and split with the Tories. I wonder what would it have been like.
Exactly, and it was a really good. I basically put everything on hold for 2 months and did nothing but knock on doors for 2 months. And that was really good. And I met all sorts of people from all walks of life. And I wouldn't say I was massively surprised. I kind of knew what I might find, just generally. But it worked quite well. I mean, I managed to get 13% increase, 13 percentage points more vote than last time. Cut the majority quite a lot. I was quite happy with that. I knew the chances were I wasn't going to win. That was pretty clear. It's when the Brexit Party moved away. But I certainly think it was. I had to do something, because it was something I wanted to do, You know, it's
You're passionate about it.
oh, absolutely, and I think there are not enough people in the House of Commons who actually have real life experience, actually done it. You know, have actually know what it's like to build something from scratch, and weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth and go through all the usual places.
Well, join us next week for more on Politics News UK.
Politics News UK, exactly. I just think it's a dangerous time we're in at the moment because there's a lot of people that are so polarized on issues. You saw this in America with Trump. We're now seeing it here with with the right-wing Tory party, under Boris Johnson. It's surreal, and this is what happens when you have media owned by a handful of people who just feed stuff over decades to people, and social media as a platform that just allows complete misinformation to spread like wildfire.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see those things come in from Twitter towards the end of Trump's position in power, right? Disputing his claims, say, hey, check out the real information here, and you do the platform. Can be scary in a way, but the platform has the final say. That's why I don't push big on YouTube that much, is because YouTube could do whatever they want with your content at any time.
Exactly. I mean, it's and this is the issue, but we have to be able to challenge these things because it's anti-vax, for example. I mean, it used to never exist. Now I was surprised by how many people are like that.
Yeah.
But not just surprised by how many people like that, but how many people were utterly resistant to any reason. But saying, well, look, no, I studied this, and this is how this all works. Is why it's like, no, that's not true.
I think the internet has allowed this as well. A lot of these things, or people say echo chambers, it's allowed people and communities to come together and block out other viewpoints.
It's also a failing of our education system, is we're not giving people the tools to critically evaluate and make their own minds up. They're just accepting it.
Yeah.
And it's we could do a whole session on the psychology of that and everything else, but that's another one.
It's interesting, Craig. I know you have another call to get onto, so thanks so much for your time. Is there any parting words or shout outs, or maybe a brief message to people interested in attending the next Insomnia, or what they should know in a bite-sized quote or something?
Number one, the forums are back, insomniacommunity.com. Join us on there. We're slowly it's a slow start, but we wanted to bring those back because I don't know about you, but Discord for me is just, especially in the big Discords, I just can't keep up. It's just like
too many of them for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I like forums, and there is still a place for forums, I think. Obviously, to keep in touch, go to the insomniagamingfestival.com site. Make sure you join the mailing list, follow all the various social media channels, and and if you have any ideas, share them with us on the forums. Share them with us in our Discord. Join the Discord. What's quite interesting is it's quite humbling actually that when the announcement came out, there was actually quite an influx of people back into the Discord. It's quite nice to see that. It's like, whoa, okay. And there's some funny memes as well went around. As you know, I am perfectly okay with people taking the piss royally out of me. So that's plenty of those too. Hence pub quiz. And the pub quiz. We'll see what we do about that. We want to do the world record. Come on. But yeah, parting thoughts. Stay in touch. We're doing everything we can to make it happen. And we hope to have information on a date and some tickets soon.
I'm crossing my fingers. I'm very excited after talking to you. And I feel bad. I didn't intro you as Wizzo. I've said Craig. Are you still known as Wizzo?
So Wizzo. I mean, I answer to many things. Those are the two main ones. Those are two main ones. It depends who you're talking to. A lot of people know me as Wizzo and don't even know my real name. And there's other people like in the finance world who go, what the hell is Wizzo? But I still sign off as Craig Wizzo Fletcher and deliberately do that to make sure they realise that this is games world.
Nice.
Our world now.
I want to know where your names come from now, but I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, it's basically my first LAN party I went to was on a US Air Force base in the Banbury, I think it was.
Right.
I went with my brother, and I used to play flight sims with him. He's 12 years older than me. I've got two brothers, 11 and 12 years older. And I used to do all the controls, like EF2000 used to do all the controls for him. Every key could have 3 different meanings. And the term Wizzo is the technical co-pilot in a US 2-seater jet.
Okay, right.
That's where the name comes from. So
interesting.
I thought, that's the name I'll use.
Interesting.
So, and it seems to not be that common. I've only come across a couple of them. So, which is good. There's the story in very brief detail.
Yeah, thank you very much, Craig. I know you've got a dash now. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your
I'm sure
time.
we'll talk again soon. There's lots to cover.
I'm sure we will. I'm really excited for Insomnia. Thanks everyone to watching. Please, like Craig said, follow the Insomnia channels, and I hope to see you all at the next LAN. Thanks for watching.